Hi, Dana.
I'm
Hi,
working on
Sai.
it here.
How y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
It's so good to
Good.
see you, Sai.
Good to see you too, Dana. Long time no see, friend.
Yep, I was telling um Justin that I had my dinner over there, sweet potato, pea, noodle, chili soup.
Oh, that sounds lovely, dear. Just the kind of thing I love. I love
Well,
anything called chili, so.
I just throw stuff in a pan and cook it all day, you know.
I
Oh,
love
and
it. I love
chicken's
it.
in it with it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Get you your protein.
Yep.
Hi, Larry. How are you? Nice to see you.
Hello, Cynthia. Can you hear me all right?
I sure can. Thank you so
Good.
much.
Hi,
Hmm.
We're
Larry.
We're glad to
Hello.
have you all
Hi.
today. Thank you so much for coming. So we're going to do a class on poetry. Let me share my screen. Give me one second here to get myself situated. There we go. It's the wrong thing there.
So you had the cold, huh, Sai?
I sure did. Yeah, I'm actually still kind of recovering a little bit, but doing way better than I was. I actually was sick this whole last weekend and then I'm still kind of trying to recover, but doing way better than I was.
Well,
So,
I had it for 2 weeks, and my brother's girlfriend, she had it for 3 weeks. And my
oh
sister down in
no.
Arizona, she had it for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry to
I
hear
know.
that.
It knocks you out, doesn't it?
Sure does. It sure does. I'm feeling it. I'm doing good, but of course I had a long, busy day today. So,
Uh-huh.
you know how that goes, right? You sit down, you're like, whew. But luckily, I get a chance to talk about some poetry, which is one of my favorite things. With that, we can begin. Are you ready for us to begin, Justin? I think that's a yes.
I am. Sorry, cut off.
Perfect.
Yeah, let's start. Yay.
All righty, so this will be our second annual poetry series. The first time that we did this class was just about a year ago. I think like a year, I would say 1 week less than a year ago. So it's really perfect timing. We should really be enjoying to have this for Valentine's Day. That way, if you like, you can write a poem to your amour, or your love, or maybe a potential love. So this is just a little bit about me. So currently I'm working as an admin and a lead for a catering company that services the Bellevue area and the downtown Seattle area. We bring food for a lot of the tech companies Monday through Friday. So great job, really love it. They also let me do some wellness coaching on the side. So they call that either a wellness coach or a life coach, kind of basically the same thing, helping people to reach their true potential. In addition, I'm also a hobbyist. I've got a lot of hobbies and more every day. Photography, I love cooking. I've been making soap and skincare products. I also do paint pouring, which is a kind of an abstract type of painting that you can do, and then epoxy. That's a type of resin, and you can make jewelry and stuff out of that. I actually use the paint skins from paint pouring to make the jewelry, so a little bit of a multimedia project. Obviously, poetry is a love of mine, and polymer clay, which also I can make jewelry out of. So those have been kind of my favorite hobbies as of late. So what we'll be covering today in class will be what makes a collection of words a poem, different styles and types of poems, and then also some examples of each type. We'll give you a chance to write your own poem if you would like. And then also, I thought I'd give you some tips and tricks to poetry, how to write a poem to your love or potential love. About 5 minutes or so will give you to write a poem if you'd like. That's optional participation. You don't need to do that if you don't like to, but it gives you a good chance to sort of create some poetry of your own. And then also, you can ask me questions in real time if you like. If you need some additional assistance in writing that poem, I'm here for you. We can also do a question and answer session at the end, about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on time left. So if y'all have any questions at the end, let me know. I'm happy to answer them for you. And with that, we will begin.
Um, I can't see your screen. Are you sharing your screen?
Let
Or
me
is
see.
it just me, or can you see the screen, Dana?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me back out of this. Give me 1 second here. Thank you for telling me, Justin.
Oh, no
I
worries.
must just have not hit it. Okay, so let me back out of this. Oh, there we go. Okay, sharing screen. Struggling to find where I'm supposed to be doing that. Sorry, Justin. Why am I not finding that?
Does it when you hit share, can you hit share? Is share on there? Or the green share button
Screen share. I
down
am
below?
not seeing that at all. I think I'm just in a slightly different screen than usual. Oh, I see. Gotcha. Thank you so much.
No worries.
All right, look at
There we go.
that. We got some
Yeah.
action. We were just waiting for Holly to show up. See? Hi,
Hey,
Holly.
Hi,
Holly.
Hi,
laugh out loud.
Holly.
Hi, sign.
Okay, perfect. Let's try that again, folks. Sorry about that. So, all right. Can y'all see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. That's what I'm looking for. All righty. Let me start over a little bit. So we have our second annual poetry series. We did one about this time a year ago and thought it'd be great to do for Valentine's Day. That way, if you'd like to write a poem, you're able to as well. Optional though, you can if you want to, you don't have to. As mentioned, I'm doing catering in Seattle currently, and then also working as a life coach. Got lots of good hobbies going on as well. All right, and then as I said, what makes a collection of words a poem? Different styles of poems, and then examples of each, and then a chance to write your own poem if you'd like, as well as tips and tricks for poetry we can do. So here's a quote I really liked. This is from someone named Victoria Erickson. She wrote the quote, "If you cry regularly from the beauty, pain, unfairness, and wonder in equal parts cascading through the world, your body, and your memory, then you should be writing." She wrote a book called Edge of Wonder. Alrighty, now to get into the meat of it here. So what makes something a poem? Here's a list of some poetry tools that are used frequently. So imagery, metaphor, rhythm and simile, personification. Those are all different poetry tools. And then what makes something a poem, according to Google, is a poem is a piece of writing that uses artistic language to convey a feeling, story, or setting. Poems can have many elements, including rhyme, meter, figurative language, form, and diction. And then along with that are different poetry tools. So writing in shorter lines to slow the reader down, that would be considered a line break. Another tool is the rhythm of the poem, so kind of how the cadence goes of the poem, sort of the beat of it, you could say. Um, Metaphor is saying that something is something else. So your eyes are stars, that would be a metaphor. Whereas if you were to say your eyes are like stars, that would be a simile. Imagery, of course, your eyes are like stars is also imagery because it brings up a picture in your mind of what is happening. So people would maybe picture the twinkling of an eye, right? That would be a little bit of an imagery, comparing your eyes to stars. Also, personification, and that is giving human traits to something that is not human. So you'll find that a lot. What could be a good example of personification? Saying that a clock is monotonous and bored, maybe. That could be a way of giving a human trait to a clock. And then repetition, so repeating something over and over and over. Sometimes it's really just a way to punctuate or bring back to mind maybe a particular theme or idea in a poem. So if it comes up over and over and over again, that's meaning to draw your attention to something. Alliteration, which is using the same sound at the beginning of neighboring words. So I always use the example of Warren Zevon. He wrote a song called The Werewolves of London, but in that song, he talks about how a little old lady got mutilated late last night. That is alliteration. Just one example of it. So kind of a Halloween theme with that one. Okay. Alrighty. So these are elements, as mentioned on the last screen, of poetry. So imagery, rhythm, which is your tempo of the poem, the sound that words make when placed together, the rhyme, and that happens at the end of the phrases. In many poems, every other line will rhyme. And then fancy and figurative language, meaning not plain language. They're trying to find some really fun and unusual, inventive ways to say something that's fairly simple. So other poetic tools that are used, as mentioned, meter. So that is the actual beat of a poem. It's the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables in each line. That is sometimes referred to as iambic pentameter. So it's kind of got its own sort of beat or rhythm. Again, simile and metaphor, as we mentioned. Irony is another one we haven't spoken about yet. That is a situation where there is a contrast between expectation and reality. So we've all heard that poem or that song from Alanis Morissette where she talks about all the ironic things in the day. Rain on your wedding day, winning the lottery, and then your plane crashes right after you win the lottery. That would be ironic. Allusion. So allusion it would be a reference to a person, place, or thing outside of the poem. One example I use of that is in Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. He refers to his wife, Edgar Allan Poe's actual wife, Lenore, in that poem. And so you wouldn't necessarily know anything about Lenore unless you knew a little bit about Edgar Allan Poe himself. but he frequently brings up his wife who had passed away at an early age in poems. Brought him a lot of sadness and drove him to some pretty desperate situations in his life. Alliteration, as mentioned, and then assonance. So this is a repetition of a vowel sound. A couple different options here for that would be squeaky wheel or dumb luck. So just kind of gives you a little bit of a cadence to the poem again. And then one of my very favorites, juxtaposition. So that is placing two contrasting elements together for contrasting effect. Uh, we'll hear a little bit about that a little bit later. So here's some different kinds of poems that we'll be talking about today. So free verse is probably the easiest type of poetry to write. You don't need to rhyme it. You don't need to use any of the poetry elements or tools necessarily. Of course, you can if you'd like, but there are really no rules with a free verse poem. The one thing I might suggest if you're going to write a free verse poem is to use some different language, maybe some figurative or fancier language other than plain how we speak normally, to kind of draw the reader's mind to your topic and what you're trying to convey. Another one is a haiku. So these have 3 lines, and then the first line has 5 syllables. The second line has 7 syllables, and the third line has 5 syllables again. Also limericks. Those are funny poems. There's a lot of them. I think they're quite funny. And then just for a little bit of variety, I'll talk a little bit about sonnets. Those are what Shakespeare wrote a lot of. They are very difficult poems to write. There's a lot that you can learn from trying to write a sonnet, but it's a very advanced move, I'll be honest with you. If we were to try to write a poem today, that would be a sonnet, it would take hours and hours and hours to get right because you'd have to find just the right cadence to the poem, you'd have to find the right rhyming sequence. Usually there are other elements at play as well that we'll talk about a little bit later. But those are just a couple different kinds of poems. So this is a limerick here that I'll share with you. I think you may remember this one, Dana, from when we had this class before. I just think this is the funniest limerick ever. The rhyme scheme is A A B B A. So 5 lines. The first 2 rhyme. The second and the third and the fourth rhyme, and then the fifth rhymes with the first 2. And it'll go as such. There once was a man from Nantucket who kept all his cash in a bucket. But his daughter, named Nan, ran away with a man. But as for the bucket, Nan took it. That's so funny. I don't know why. Okay, so there's a limerick, a little something to make you chuckle. And as mentioned, the standard limerick form is 5 lines. Lines 1, 2, and 5 rhyme. There are 3 stresses of 3 syllables each, but it has a very kind of a beat to it. That is the stresses that you're hearing. And then lines 3 and 4 will rhyme with themselves, but not with lines 1, 2, or 5. They tend to be a little bit shorter and then have 2 feet or stresses of 3 syllables each. So short by about a stress. Alrighty, and then we'll talk a little bit about haiku. Haiku are also syllable specific. They appear to be an easy poem to write, but in reality can be a little bit more challenging than you might assume. So these have the 575 rhyming format and 3 lines total. So traditionally, haiku have a nature theme. Of course, it's a Japanese poem. The first line establishes the setting. The third line may be a surprise or a commentary. So that's sometimes one of the things about a haiku that you'll find is that third line is can be an unexpected turn of events. And then often uses juxtaposition, so placing two contrasting elements together to highlight the difference. That's a common theme in haikus. So here's a couple examples of haiku for you. The first one, your laughter fills me, sends sparkling currents of joy up and down my spine. Not exactly a surprising ending there, but beautiful. The second one here, sunlight in your smile, diamonds dancing in your eyes, the essence of you. So that in this case, the third line sort of ties the first two together. You're like, oh, what are you writing about? Oh, of course, the essence of you is what you're writing about here. Okay. All righty. And then we'll talk a little bit about sonnets here. Sonnet is another word for little song. Those are written in iambic pentameter. Each line of the sonnet has 10 syllables, and every other syllable is stressed. So you can already tell that would be a difficult poem to start writing. Just finding a line of words that has every other syllable stressed can be difficult. And now imagine having 14 of those that rhyme with each other can be even more difficult. That rhyme scheme is wild. A, B, A, B, that's for your first stanza or group of, it's almost like a paragraph within a poem. The second stanza would be B, C, B, C. The third stanza would be C, D, C, D. And the fifth stanza rhymes only with itself, E and E. So there are 3 quatrains, so 4-line paragraphs, and a couplet, so a 2-line paragraph. Very common in sonnets are love and desire themes. They are common but not necessarily requirement. But a lot of the sonnets that you'll see if you're looking at sonnets, a lot of them are about love. They are thought to have originated in 13th century Sicily. So Shakespeare wrote a lot of sonnets. I think we'll be featuring one in a moment by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. She was a sonnet writer as well. Very good. And there are many formal variations of the sonnet. There's a Spenserian one, there's stretched, there's submerged sonnets. There are many different kinds. But for our purposes, we'll just keep it simple and just call them all sonnets. But I want to let you know there's a lot of different variety. Okay. All righty. So this is Sonnet 18. And I will read it to you. We'll see what you think about it. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Sometime too hot the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed, and every fair from fair sometime declines, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owest, nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. There's a poem by William Shakespeare. Talks a lot about the beauty of an unnamed woman here, and as long as he lives, these facets that he speaks of give him life. Lots to look at here. Obviously, we could go through line by line and talk about exactly what this particular sonnet means, but I kind of just wanted to give you a feel for it. Obviously, you could go into a deep dive about this particular sonnet, and we could do a whole class on it, what it means, why they've said what they've said, and how to translate it. So, of course, when you're looking at anything that William Shakespeare's written, you've got to do a little bit of deep diving in order to understand exactly what he's saying. They use different words than we're familiar with these days, obviously. But there's lots here. It's a love poem, and that you can kind of tell. He talks about how death would not brag, talks about eternity, about how as long as men can breathe and eyes can see, this will give him life, the love of his life. So here's some things to look at and think about, especially with this sonnet here. There's a lot of elements here. So it's written in iambic pentameter, as mentioned. If you were to read it exactly right, you'd be able to tell there are stressed next to unstressed syllables. So it's got a real ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum kind of note to it. The stress on the syllables is every other one throughout the three quatrains and the couplet. Another element mentioned here is juxtaposition. So they're talking about rough winds do shake the darling buds of May. So thinking about the beautiful spring buds and then also the rough winds. That would be juxtaposition there, putting the two contrasting elements together for the contrasting effect. Personification, they're talking about death as if death is a person. Obviously, the idea of death cannot brag, but if we were to personify the idea of death, then it can have any number of human traits. And then metaphor. So metaphor is comparing thee to a summer's day. Simile would be using the words like or as, and then metaphor is just saying that something straight up is something else. So your eyes are stars, right? That would be a metaphor. Okay, just a couple different elements there. And then before we go too much further, to talk with you a little bit about free verse, which, as I mentioned, there are no rules. It is a wonderful way to go about beginning to write poetry. Because there are no rules, anything that you feel in your heart and feel in your head, you can write down and call a poem. There are literally no rules about it. That's the beauty of free verse. And then also, what you do want to do with this is go with your gut. Anything that speaks to you is a good thing to write a poem about. So if you have someone you have a crush on, that's a great place to start with writing a poem, a free verse poem. The only thing you need is a subject matter to write about, and you can just start writing. Sometimes finding common words and then finding another word that describes it even a little bit more creatively is a good way to go about writing free verse poems. So let's look at a few poems here. Obviously, we looked at one sonnet, but here's a couple others. I did try to find some poems that were about love, since we're talking about Valentine's Day, and give you a couple different ideas about what we can write about in our poems if we'd like. So She Walks in Beauty, that is a poem by Lord Byron. We'll also talk about a poem called If I Can Stop One Heart from Breaking. That's Emily Dickinson. She's wrote a lot of poems. To My Dear and Loving Husband, obviously a love poem to a gentleman. That's Anne Bradstreet that has written that. And then How Do I Love Thee? That'll be another visit with a sonnet. Elizabeth Barrett Browning wrote that sonnet. And we'll begin. So this is She Walks in Beauty by Lord Byron. She walks in beauty like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes, thus mellowed to that tender light which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. Alrighty, so that was a sweet little poem there. That one's got some good stuff in it. So I've got some different notes here about it because it is written, it was from 1814. They're talking about comparing a woman's beauty to a starry night sky, blending darkness and light in perfect harmony, suggests that inner goodness and innocence are the source of her captivating grace. Um, so there's a lot here. I did make a bunch of notes about it, but it kind of just goes through. It's somewhat easy to figure out what he's saying, but can be a little bit challenging. You know, if you were gonna have to like translate the poem into modern day, it would be probably a little bit difficult, but you know, these guys have been writing, many people have been writing about this kind of poetry for a very long time. So if you were to find any poem that you liked online, you can almost always find someone that can translate exactly what it means, what it's meant to mean. But I also find that frequently everyone's particular thoughts about a poem differ from person to person because everyone's got different shared experiences. Maybe we all have a different feeling about what it means to walk in beauty, or you know, all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Maybe what that means to one person, it doesn't necessarily mean to another. So there's no wrong way to translate a poem. It's just common translations that we're talking about. So if it brings up something for you to hear the poem that maybe isn't mentioned elsewhere, it's not right or wrong. It's however you are viewing the poem that makes it correct. So here is Emily Dickinson. If I can stop one heart from breaking, not quite a love poem per se, but yeah, about love. If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain. So that's a short, sweet little poem. So someone does not want to live their life in vain. So every little thing that they can do to stop a heart from breaking helps their life to not be lived in vain. I think that's kind of the basic idea of that poem. So a little bit easier to translate because it's shorter. So here we've got one from Anne Bradstreet, To My Dear and Loving Husband. This is a great poem. If any of you have a partner, a male partner that you'd like to write a poem to, you could just write this down on a page. It's sweet. Really a sweet romantic poem here. And it really could be to my dear and loving wife, too, honestly. If ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then thee. If ever wife was happy in a man, compare with me, ye woman, if ye can. I prize thy love more than whole mines of gold, or all the riches that the East doth hold. My love is such that rivers cannot quench, nor aught but love from thee give recompense. Thy love is such I can no way repay. Thy heavens reward thee manifold, I pray. Then while we live in love, let's so persevere that when we live no more, we may live ever. Alrighty. So what do we think about that last poem? Anyone got any thoughts? Kind of romantic. Lots of kind of fancy words there, but you get kind of the basic idea. Someone loves their sweetie an awful lot. So here is another sonnet for you. How do I love thee? And you may have heard this part. So, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. That's a pretty common beginning to a poem. I think a lot of people say that a lot. They might not know the whole poem, but that's a common phrase to use. Um, Probably not too common these days, but I've heard people say, let me count the ways, right? So, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight, for the ends of being and ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with the love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smile, tears of all my life, and, if God choose, I shall not love thee better after death. So that's a poem that transcends life itself. So he shall not love thee better after death, if even if God choose for him to. So that's a pretty sweet little poem here. Lots of love is mentioned in it. And they talk about how I love thee freely, I love thee purely, I love thee with the passion. and talks about old griefs and childhood's faith. So lots is brought up and into this poem here. Alrighty, so now we can write a poem of our own if we would like. Feel free to write free verse. That is probably the easiest way to start the poetry writing process. Either free verse or any other type of poem. If you're feeling like maybe a haiku is something you'd like to write, that can be great too. I did come up with some word combinations that might be of help with starting by evoking an image. So bringing up some imagery for you. I just did some simple two-word pairings that might bring up some ideas for poems. Just sort of a little jump starter for you. Or you can start with something near and dear to your heart. Anything that you're feeling in your heart is worth writing about. So if you're feeling like you'd like to write a journal entry, for example, almost anything that you can write in a journal entry, you can kind of use more fanciful language and turn it into a poem. So I will leave. Okay, one more screen here for us. So important to know there is no wrong way to start to create a poem. While many people use well-known formulas, such as what would be in a sonnet or a haiku or even a limerick, you do not have to. Many elements that some would say would lead to a good poem. So that would be the rhyming scheme at the end, or the stressed and unstressed syllables using the words like and as, or comparing someone to something, personification, alliteration. All of those are elements that you could use to create a poem, but you don't need to use any of them. It may be suggested that you use maybe just one element if you're looking for somewhere to start, but again, you do not need to. Alrighty. So juxtaposition can be a good way to start a poem. These are more tips and tricks here for you. And that again is putting two contrasting elements together. Uh, and then also to try to remove helping words. A lot of times you'll see in these poems that they're not writing the way we would speak. They're removing some words that we use, sort of connecting words, such as a, an, the, or to. These are all good examples of helping words that sometimes you don't need in a poem. Um, and when you remove them, it just automatically kind of makes it sound a little more poetic. And then, of course, what brings you inspiration or angst? Pulling from personal experience is definitely going to be a wellspring of topics for you to write about. So anything that really you're feeling with your heart, you can write about with your head. You can go as deep or as light as you want with a poem. You don't have to make it doesn't have to be fun-hearted and it doesn't have to be dark. You can do it just as you like with any poetry that you are writing. The one thing I will say is you want to try to have fun with it. That's the idea, right? Alrighty, so now if you'd like, feel free. You can feel free here to use any of these words, poetry helping words to create a poem. If you're just needing like a little jump start, any of these phrases can go in your poem, or you can decide to do something else entirely different. If you'd like, we can do the haiku. You could just do free verse. If you'd like to begin work on a sonnet, that's admirable as well. Feel free. But I'll give you just I'll give you about 5 minutes or so to see how far you come along with the poem here. So I'm showing 5:16 I'll give you till 5:21 or so to see how far you'd like to get with a poem. Or if you prefer not to write a poem, also totally fine. You can just relax for about 5 minutes. And I'll let you know when your time's up.
Hi.
Yes.
Are you gonna have poems on record?
We don't have to if you don't want to.
Um, yeah, I looked at some old notes and I on my phone and I just found one I wrote last fall in October. And I may read it, but it's on the darker side a little bit. So,
Yeah, we can we can stop the recording just for people's
okay.
privacy.
Yeah,
Totally
yeah, yeah,
understandable.
absolutely.
Okay.
I got a little more work to do on my poem.
We're
So
back to
thank you
recording now.
everybody for sharing all of that good stuff. I really enjoyed all of everybody's poems, and I hope you continue to work on your poems as the yearning hits you. Hopefully, there's some good ones for Valentine's Day coming up for you, if indeed that's the route you like to go with your poetry as well. Did anybody have any questions for me before we end? Well, fantastic. Thank you,
Well,
everybody, for
uh,
showing up.
well, I have one. What is
Yeah.
your favorite? What is your favorite poem?
This will seem kind of egotistical, but there's a poem that my name came from.
Hmm.
Which I almost shared with you guys, and then I thought, oh gosh, that just sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, so I didn't mention it. It's a poem by Ernest Dowson. I don't have the whole thing memorized. It's Latin, so bear with me. The name of the poem is Non sum qualis eram boni sub regno senarii, which means I am not as good as I was when I was under the influence or reign of Sonara. That's my full name. The poem is written by Ernest Dowson. He was a end of the 1800s poet. He was an English poet. It's also the poem that Margaret Mitchell got the title for Gone with the Wind from. I can tell you the beginning is like last night, ah, yesternight, betwixt her lips and mine, there fell thy shadow, Sonara. Yea, I am sick. I forget exactly, but it ends up, I have been faithful to thee, Sonara, in my fashion. So that being my name, I really have always loved that poem. It's a really beautiful poem. If you're into poetry, it's well worth a read through. It's a
Is
poem about a prostitute. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. But it is a really beautiful poem, too. So he was obviously in love with her, and I'm glad that's my name.
is Sonara a Latin or an Italian name or Greek or
It is so Sonara is the genus name of artichoke. So what canine is to dog, Sonara is to artichoke.
hmm.
So it's Linnaean in nature, I suppose, if we were to say the Linnaean classifications. Um, but I would say Latin would be closest to what it is
Okay.
currently. But I just go by Psi at this point, but the full name is Sonara.
Hmm.
Thank you so much for asking that. I have a
Sure.
lot of favorite poems, but I'd have to say that's my favorite, the one I know the best.
Hmm.
Well, this got our creative mind thinking, right?
Yep, it sure did. It sure did. Connecting our mind with our hearts, right, Dana?
Right, right, right.
Yep, yep, yep. So I hope you all get to continue on your poetry journey. And there's lots of great poetry out there. We could read a poem a day for the rest of our lives and still not have even skimmed the surface. So I hope you all get to read and write more poetry in your next coming days and years.
As usual, thank you for a great presentation.
Thank you
Bye,
so much, Holly.
everybody.
I'm so pleased y'all got to attend today. I love these kind of more intimate groups, I got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, so much for attending today. And
And I'll
I
be
can't
sending
wait
these
to do
slides
it
out
again.
to you all so you can review them.
Oh, that'd
Great.
be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, you
Thank
Okay,
too.
you so
Bye.
guys.
much.
Guys, good to see
Bye.
you
Take
all.
care. Bye bye,
Bye bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.